John Cohen has a big decision to make in terms of the future of the Auburn football program. Mike G stops by to discuss everything Auburn football on this edition of the Uptempo podcast.
You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
Yes, sir. What is up to my Auburn family? What's up to the Uptempo gang? Another episode of the Uptempo podcast. And I thought I'd bring my boy Mike G in. Mike recently sat down with Auburn Athletic Director John Cohen. Mike, first off, props to you, buddy. One of the best interviews I've seen in a long time. There's a lot that I want to discuss coming out of that interview, man. So let's hop right into it, my guy. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, Dustin. It's a busy time right now on the Plains. Obviously, John Cohen busy interviewing candidates this week. As far as we know, James Franklin interviewed this week. Kenny Dillingham potentially interviewed this week, as well as John Summerall sitting down with the athletic director this week to interview for the job. So our guy SEC Mike came on the show. He said he feels like Auburn is the top job open right now, and right now he feels like it's a better job than even LSU or Florida. And I have to agree with him, man. I think that Auburn is a great job right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to get into that. But before we do, I know we got to look forward, Mike. But sometimes in life, you got to look to the past, reminisce on your mistakes, learn from them, and grow. John Cohen was fresh on the job, and I've been quick to defend John in terms of people say, well, he needs to be responsible for the Hugh hire. And I say, well, somewhat, but he was like, he did show up, and then immediately that was kind of put on his plate. So context is important here. Now he's firmly established as Auburn's athletic director. He stood at the podium and said, I am the committee. I will be making. He firmly said, I'm the guy. Leave your evil booster narrative at home. I'm the guy. I'll make the choice here. So with that being the case, and again, now this time he's been here for a while. He knows what Auburn needs, or at least we hope he does. What are some lessons that can be learned from this previous regime, this Hugh Freeze era, that could serve John Cohen to maybe reflect on and grow from moving forward in his next hire?
Yeah, I think, in asking him about what went wrong, like I asked him, how disappointed were you that it just didn't work? And he talked a lot about the analytics, Dustin, and in the decision to hire Hugh Freeze and the things that he had done in the past with quarterbacks and with the programs that he had been at. I think that the mistake they made was the relevancy of those accomplishments are not really what college football is today, right? Look, we know what he did at Ole Miss. You beat Saban twice. Tell me that this is the same game 10 years ago that it is today. It's not.
That's
right?
Part of the reason why Saban left.
Yeah, well, he's exactly why he left. He said, when my message stopped resonating with athletes, I knew it was time to hang it up, because these guys are wanting to come in and talk money. And forever, he had been preaching opportunity and hard work and development, and nothing is promised. Well, something is being promised now. Money is being promised. And with that money, you have to, it's almost like you can't pay $1 million for a guy not start him.
Right.
And that's not the Saban way. He didn't want to do that. That's why he came back to college. It was because, the investment into these kids financially is helping shape what we see in terms of how they play the guys on their roster. And if you're John Cohen, I love it. This is a great question. And Dustin, I can give you credit, man. I don't think anybody's ever asked. I think anybody's asked me this question since I've been doing interviews about the coaching search. The mistake that you cannot make is you cannot make the mistake of hiring a guy based on accomplishments that are no longer relevant to today's college football. You can't do that, right? So, James Franklin is a guy who's had a lot of success in his career.
Great resume.
Right. However, when he was at his peak, is that currently relevant to what the game is today? You could argue that, hey, he was just in the playoffs. Yeah, a year or two ago. So, yes, maybe.
And the semis, a game away.
Yeah, right. But also, his quarterbacks have woefully underperformed as of recent. And Auburn has had a quarterback problem since Bo. So John, you got to get this one right. You've got to get this one right. And you know, I again, I had a question to him about what's the most important thing in a coach, and you know, it's your show. I don't know. There's a clip here with him talking
Yeah,
about
go
it. I
ahead.
don't know
Go ahead.
you want to play it? Yeah,
Yeah,
like
go
of John Cohen talking about what's the most important thing in Auburn's next coach. Thing or the other as athletic director. Now, obviously, you have conversations with President Roberts and other people who obviously you have to report to. But what's the number one thing you think maybe is most important in Auburn's next head football coach?
Well, my goodness, how many times did I say this a week ago? I think our kids really want the person with an edge, right? That edge factor of pushing them all the time to be the best that you can be. Now, look, when you say that as a characteristic, that doesn't ever necessarily mean that you're casting aspersions on previous coaches or anybody else. But that's what we're looking for, and our kids want to be pushed. Our kids want to be the best they can be, and quite frankly, with the weapons that we have on the offensive side of the football, it's got to be better. It's got to be better, and it's going to get better because the kids have to be pushed. The kids have to be in a position through preparation to show what their skill level can do in SEC football games, and we have to get somebody in that seat who's going to get that out of not only our offense, but our defense as well. So that's the person we're looking for.
So that's the person they're looking for. Now, you could argue DJ Durkin is already that guy.
Yeah.
And he's in the seat and he's interviewing in real time as the interim. But you can't get this wrong, because if you bring somebody in who these guys don't see as that guy that they respect and that will hold their candle to the fire, their foot to the fire when need be, you're going to lose a lot of this talent when you announce that name. Now, hear me out on this one, Dustin. Hugh didn't have a relationship with a lot of these guys. And I know from talking to them, hey,
which is surprising considering the recruiting chops being built on relationships. It's very weird.
Other people owned those relationships. Will Campbell owned those relationships. Kenyatta Watson owned those relationships. Right. Marcus Davis owned those relationships. He had excellent recruiters on his staff. I think combined with them, the money did a lot of the work, and he got a lot of the credit for reviving this roster. But the truth is that there was a lot of money and effort put in by other people to help build this roster. And I don't, again, as a head coach, you're responsible for all of it. So I don't want to take that completely away from him, but he didn't do it on his own. Right. Like, he had a lot of help, and a lot of those guys are still here. And if you retain DJ Durkin, you're going to retain a lot of those guys. And I don't think you see much fall off in terms of recruiting. Personally, if you're going to give him $30 million to go get a roster, $20 million from rev share plus another 10, he can go do it too. Right. These guys can go do it. I think you'll see recruiting continue to thrive. So, but you can't, I'm not in the vein of Auburn people that are just like, blow this up and start over. No. You're not just going to go out and find another Cam Coleman. And if you're John Cohen, you can't make the mistake of hiring somebody who comes in with that attitude, tell everybody to transfer and we'll start over. No, like, you want Cam Coleman to stay. You drop the bag. You give him one of the biggest NIL deals in the history of college football this offseason to stay on the Plains. All that's talk about moving the Baylor game for money. That's what you use that money for. Here's $5 million, Cam. Stay, please. Reports are out there, and I do know the exact numbers, but I won't put his business out there. I'm just saying, you throw $2.5 million on what he's making now, and you get him to stay. So I will not ever change my mind about that. I hope that John Cohen feels the same way. But Dustin, I'm telling you, those are the mistakes you can't make. You cannot make the mistake of hiring a guy whose success is not relevant to today's college football.
Yeah.
You just can't, right? And I don't care what they did. I don't care what you did 10 years ago. This is a different game today.
This is where I don't envy the John that John Cohen has, Mike, is because I'm putting myself in his position for a second. Okay. I got James Franklin, for example. This guy's resume, pretty solid. Now, look, I know people are going to look at that and say, well, he never won the big game. Still, his win percentage is up there. He's won a lot of football games. The argument that I would make, and I've said multiple times on this show, I'm not going to plant the flag for any head coach because I don't think I'm not in the interview process. I don't have the access to the information needed to make that call. But what I would say is if I'm in John Cohen's spot, I'm looking at Franklin and I'm thinking, okay, let's say he just replicates what he did at Penn State at Auburn. That would be a big step up from where Auburn is since 2020. It would be a massive step forward. He was one game from the national championship last year. I tend to think that if tier 5 is the level of elite coaches, I tend to think Franklin falls in 4, right? That's just kind of my belief. But 4 is still a step up from tier 1 or tier 2 or whatever in the world Auburn just went through with the last 2 guys. Then on the flip side, so I'm looking at it and I was like, okay, I got an established guy here that I think the floor could be 8-4, 9-3 if he replicates what he did at Penn State. Flip side, John Sumrall. He's only had 4 years of a coach, 2 years at Troy, wrapping up his second year at Tulane. But the record is impressive, and the people that know John all speak very highly of him. The people that know ball, people that know what to kind of look for. He's going to get a P4 SEC or Big Ten job very soon. Somebody's going to give him that opportunity. Is it Auburn this time? With your John Cohen, it's like, all right, so I'm looking at all my different candidates here. I got an established guy in James Franklin, but is it what you just mentioned? The best is behind him. Then you have Sumrall. Is this an up-and-comer, or is he Billy Napier? Because Billy Napier, look, his name didn't just pop up on Florida's radar. He trended for some years. He was very successful at UL Lafayette. He earned the right to be trending in those big time searches. Ultimately, Florida was finally the school that went out and gave him a chance, but it didn't work. Turns out Billy Napier is not an SEC level head coach. He's a group of 4 head coach or group of 5. So, but the flip side of that is, Mike, every great needs his chance. Somebody gave Nick Saban his first shot. So, and eventually somebody's got to give Sumrall his shot. I just don't envy it because, man, there's no guarantee. There's no definite in this. The one thing that I feel comfortable coming out, one, I love what he's saying about criteria or his criteria about a coach having edge. And we'll get into this in a second about like the culture, because in my opinion, and I've come on a lot of y'all shows, but particularly the post game after losses, and just talked about how, to me, the culture issue at Auburn, 4th quarter tie ball game, everyone in the stadium knows Auburn's going to lose. To me, that's a losing culture. You can actually feel it at the games. It's crazy, Mike. You're like, yep, here we go. 90,000 people can feel it. To me, at that point, like a losing culture has kind of set in. I don't think that gets reversed with the players coach kind of ho-hum dude. I think you need a hard-ass dude with an edge to come flip this around. So I hear that, and I like when Cohen says that. One thing that I also hope that he learned is, and I'm with our guy Charlie 5 that we've both recorded with recently.
Yep.
Man, you got to CEO this thing, Mike. You got to CEO this thing. It just feels to me like offense or defense. Running a program like Auburn. Look, maybe it worked for Billy Napier at UL Lafayette, but he stubbornly said, I will call plays at Florida or I will get fired. And he got fired. And he said that publicly. I don't know if like Hugh didn't say it publicly, but he all but said, I'm calling plays and I'm going down with this damn thing. And then the moment he was removed, Derek Nick said, watch me open this up. I hope that another lesson learned here, Mike, is this particular job at Auburn requires a lot of politics. It requires a lot. What did DJ say in his first press conference Monday? He said, I'm doing this press conference and normally I would be doing defensive game planning this week. And it kind of looked like that. It kind of looked like that happened on Saturday. So that's kind of my big takeaway from this Hugh Freeze era, because I'll be honest, man, when he first came in, I said, well, did he call plays before? Then he should call plays now. He should do what he was successful at. I was wrong on that. This Auburn job appears to be a big thing in this new era of NIL and roster retention, and you're just trying to re-recruit your roster every single year.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's so much that goes into this, buddy, to where I'm leaning towards the CEO guy and go out and give him the maximum resources to get the best coordinators that he needs and keep Kenyatta Watson, keep Will Redmond, keep that part of the staff in place.
Well, there was another clip, Dustin, about the message. I think goes in line with what you're talking about, the message to potential candidates for the job. Because one of the things that we wanted to address was this idea that Auburn is somehow a bad job because of the recent coaching carousel here,
or because, like Joe Klatt said, there's another big school in the state, so Auburn can't be successful.
Yeah, it's just Joe Klatt is a Klatt,
Yeah,
but
he missed.
he missed on that one. That was one of the dumbest things I think I've heard this year. But John, I do want to listen to what John had to say about his message to to coaches here, because this is an incredible window into the mind of the athletic director.
What's your message to any candidate who might be qualified but interested in the Auburn head coaching job about the type of support that they're going to get here? You made a lot of financial moves to put Auburn in a good position to compete, and it seems like that should be attractive to anybody.
Yeah, what's surprising about this is not really surprising, but what's interesting to me about this is it's not the messaging we have to the candidates, it's the candidates messaging to us. Do you realize how good a job this is? Do you realize how many great kids you have in this program? Do you understand how talented your roster is right now? I mean, we've had candidates say to us, we have top 10 in the nation talent, and I don't doubt that for 1 minute. I think we do have top 10 talent, and that is because, and I'm going to give Coach Freeze some credit here, he, along with our staff, have really upgraded the talent on both sides of the football. Yeah. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened on the offensive side of the football. It became stagnant, and I mentioned this before in a presser a week ago. If we just had average offense, I mean, just average numbers on the offensive side of the football.
You're a lost team right now.
Yeah, we're probably a one-loss. Worst case scenario, I think we're a two-loss team, and we're still in that hunt for the CFP. But that unfortunately didn't happen, and we have to find out exactly why that happened, and we have to make an adjustment at the top and find somebody who can make that adjustment for us.
So again, the roster, he talks about the roster, and like these guys are saying, you have a top 15 roster. I want to come coach these guys. Well, you know what? You better have a plan in place to make sure that those guys stay there for that coach, because if their biggest sell is I can coach that roster, well, you also need to be able to go out and recruit and develop as well too, and show that you have a system that these guys want to play in. John has this is such a hard job. He's going to get a chance to hire a second football coach, Dustin. He's not going to get an opportunity to hire a third, and hopefully he doesn't have to. So they've got to get this right. And that's the bottom line. You've got to get this hire right. And if you get this right, Auburn is maybe positioned to jump right back into conversation next year. 2012, go back and look at how bad 2012 was, 3-9. But then remember that they went to overtime in a couple of games. They lost to Clemson they had some games that they lost that would have had them bowl eligible by just less than a score. And then you add Nick Marshall and a couple pieces and Gus, and then suddenly they make a run at a national title. How do you go from 3-9 to 3 points away from winning a national title, except for that the talent was there? Yeah. Here's the other thing too, and this is one thing that I think this was a mistake I think Auburn made. Hugh made the mistake of thinking that he could out recruit his work ethic, and the lack of development that was going on offensively. So yes, you had Cam Coleman, but what did we see from Cam? The game before Hugh got fired, dropping wide open passes and things that aren't Cam Coleman like. The next week, with just a little bit of a tweak in play call, with a tweak in play call, changing play callers, and a coach that said, you know what? He's one of the best receivers in college football, and we just need to throw him the ball. And then he looks like Superman. He looks like Jerry Rice and Calvin Johnson put together. It was nuts. And so when I said, what if Auburn drops 40 on Vandy? But people went nuts on me. They were like, there was a guy in our comment section. This clown is talking about Auburn drop. What have you seen this year? The Auburn can drop 40. No, the roster is that good. What if they do? What if a change of play callers is all they needed? Then they went out, and for all intents and purposes, Dustin, they dropped 40.
So, yeah.
Come on, man. Same guy. I'll give him credit. He came back. He was like, looks like I'm the clown now. Holy crap. Yeah. And I said, this is all I'm saying, guys. You guys don't understand. You can I don't care how much talent you have. You still have to coach these kids up.
Yeah.
Because we've seen now that you can coach a roster into a ground no matter how talented it is. I mean,
I just thought the floor, Mike. I don't want to. I'm shocked. Like, as we sit here a week or two after the end of the Hugh Freeze era, I never pounded the table and said this dude was going to win titles at Auburn. I'm just shocked. I didn't know that sitting in Nashville on a cold December day, watching Auburn get pounded by Maryland, that would be the height. That a Music City Bowl appearance would be the height of the Hugh Freeze era. I'm surprised it went this bad, man. You make a lot of great points in terms of roster retention. I want to play devil's advocate here a little bit, but before I do, I want to preface this by saying, actually, the first time I ever watched Cam Coleman in high school, I was with Mike. We sat down in our seats and Cam had scored an 80-yard touchdown pass right out the gate. And I came away from that game. I said, hey, I've been to a lot of high school football games. I'm giving Cam Coleman a 6-star, not a 5-star. That's a 6-star. That's as can't miss as I've ever seen. So I'm firmly in the camp of this is a top 10 roster. I'm firmly in the camp, been in the camp for a long time. This roster was getting coached down. Look, I don't think that Hugh Freeze's first year, I don't think that was a 10-win team, but that wasn't a 6-7 team. They got coached down every single season. And you saw soon as the problem was removed, Eric Singleton, 100-yard game. Cam Coleman, same game, 100-yard game. Oh, and the running back still went for over 100. We had 200-yard receivers, Mike, with double-digit receptions, and still had a running back go for $115. You can do it all. So I am firmly in the camp, and I want to see as many of these guys stay at Auburn as possible on this roster, especially the top guys. Do whatever you got to do to keep Cam Coleman. So I don't want what I'm saying here to be misinterpreted. What I'm going to say, though, is I agree with you on that. But also, if I'm John Cohen, I hope that he is looking at whoever he decides to be the next head coach at Auburn. I hope he looks and says 5 years down the road, this guy will still be at Auburn and they'll still be winning games. Long when Cam Coleman's gone. Long when Elijah Melendez and all that young talent on that defense is gone. When all those guys are gone, whoever I make to be the head coach, I still want him to be able to be at Auburn, still be winning games, and acquire talent. What I'm saying is I don't want him to get lost in, I have to keep this roster together because these guys will run out of eligibility eventually. And if you get a guy just to keep the roster together, but he's not the actual long-term solution for Auburn, then I think that's where the critical mistake will have been made. So if you can hire a guy that can keep the roster together, great. That's what I want. Again, I want these guys to stay. These players are not the problem. And we saw that. But again, I don't want that to be, I hope that's not the sole thing. I hope there's some projecting in the future here because these guys will graduate. And then at that point, I don't want Auburn to be sitting there saying, oh man, well, okay. And an example of that I'm going to use, Mike, is Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher put together the best recruiting classes that anybody had ever seen. I'm talking about the highest rated classes that the industry had ever graded out. None of those guys ever had success at Texas A&M. Not one of them. They hired the right guy, Mike Elko, and it didn't mean nothing.
Yeah,
because it's not 2006. Look, remember Cam Coleman was actually committed there, and A&M would love to have Cam Coleman right now. They love to, but guess what? They went out and got some ballers in the portal, and it don't matter. And that's kind of a devil's advocate, I guess, would be the right way to put in that.
Elko is such a good example of the not super sexy name that is just a good coach and can come in and develop and do what needs to be done here. And in now he's got him in the conversation.
Yeah. So he crushed that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what they crushed that hire.
Yeah.
But are you telling me that Elko wasn't some big name coach that they were going to go drop, $20 million on a year and say, hey, let's come in and do this. And guys are developing there. Dustin, they're developing guys. It's really that simple. You can't make the mistake of hiring a coach whose past success is not relevant to college football today.
Which A&M did before.
Yeah. You need a guy whose best years are actually in front of him, not behind him.
All right.
No, and that sums up my take on this, right? Like I really feel like Auburn just get this right. Just get this right and make the solid hire. And no matter who John hires, he's going to get a ton of criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I'm not sure if the home run hire is out there. That everybody will universally, unless you're hiring Nick Saban. There's not a name out there that won't be widely criticized by a lot of people, in my opinion.
And I think Saban's the GOAT, and I know this will never happen, but if somebody rehired him tomorrow, I don't know if it would be the same. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no. Well, I do, but and this is why. Hear me out. I love that we're going into this hypothetical la la land, because throughout his career, he has shown an ability. I already know.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
To adapt to what the game is. When he hired Lane Kiffin, that represented a change in his philosophy about what kind of football wins. Right?
The year before, he was at the safety meeting saying Gus Malzahn's offense is a detriment to the health of defenses in this league. And then the very next year, he hired Lane Kiffin to run it up.
Yeah. He was like, all right, F it. Like, I'm just going to go out and get Lane Kiffin. That's how we're playing it. That's how we're playing it. Yeah. And then instead of having a good solid run game with a championship level defense, they went to a high-flying, they became quarterback U. Alabama had one of the greatest consecutive runs of starting quarterbacks that we've ever seen, starting at Jalen Hurts, right? And then going to Tua, right? And then Mac Jones, and then Bryce Young, and then Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, I miss Brody Kroll.
And they still won championships with Jacob Coker.
Yeah.
And what was the guy's name? Blake. Right before Coker. It was the first one that Lane got a hold of.
Yeah, they were just kind of like nameless, faceless people before.
Yeah, they'll tell us in the comments after the video. Yeah, like, but it was he took what was an average quarterback and they went and they won championships. Development. Saban has always been forward thinking.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And so you need a coach who's forward thinking. That's it. And when he decided he didn't want to do the forward thinking thing, he retired. Rather than just stay and let the game pass him by. If he got back in it, I would be 100% confident that he is got a plan for how he's going to get back in it. Right. And so, and he's not going to just say, oh, I did this 10 years ago and it worked. And so that's what we're going to do. There are some things about his process that will work, certainly, in terms of developing players. But in terms of constructing a roster and how you approach the game, man, that guy is, he's the GOAT for more than just wins and losses, man. It's about process, and it is about an ability to be self-aware enough to know when you hit a wall and when to pivot. And that's where I think Hugh failed.
Yeah.
You hit a wall and you couldn't pivot. And then when Derek Nix got his shot, he did things, he called it completely differently than you did. That's how I know you hit a wall and you wouldn't pivot, because the guy who you hired went a completely different direction the first chance he got. Remove you from the situation, and then suddenly we're seeing slants and throws over the middle of the field and a different quarterback. They settled on Ashton Daniels so quickly. I'm telling you, those guys were not on the same page about Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
They could not have been. And they can say what they want publicly. I don't care what they say publicly. They're saying that to keep the peace and not throw their former coach under the bus. But, like I said, we got all the proof we needed versus Vanderbilt. And moving forward, if you're DJ Durkin and you want this job, continue to make adjustments and changes and tweaks and find a way to win these next two. Beat Bama for the first time since 2019. And I will be firmly on the DJ Durkin train in terms of getting the job.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you can find a way. Yeah. Right. Because if you were one of those people that said Vanderbilt was great, but they still lost, then if he beats Bama, I want that same energy.
Yeah.
No matter how it looks. and then give that guy a chance. Like, do we care if Auburn gives up a few more points per game but wins? No.
I don't care how it looks. I don't care if it's 3-2. I don't care if it's 52
Right.
to 49. I'm just tired of doing post games about losing. Like,
Nobody would trade the 2010 season for anything. That was one of the worst that was the worst scoring defense to ever win a national title. That team gave up more points than any national title winner in the history of college football. We don't care. We got the trophy, baby. We want wins. Get us a winner, man. Get us a winner in here.
Yeah. Blake Sims is the quarterback.
Blake Sims. Yes, I knew his name was Blake. I couldn't remember his last name.
Yeah. They had a run of them. I missed the days of Broder Crowell and those guys, Mike. Remember the Fear the Thumb T-shirt?
Yes, well, I was there.
It's a good time.
I was on the field for that, for all that whole 6 run streak. Like, yeah, I missed the last one. The last one I graduated, but like, I'm telling you, that thing started my sophomore year, 2002. We lost to Bama, and I remember because it was they had a quarterback named Andrew Zhao back then, 2001, and the starter got hurt, and we were not prepared for Zhao and the option. And Alabama came in and they beat us at home. And after that, Auburn went up to Tuscaloosa and got the win, and then just went on that epic 6-game run of beating Bama in the Iron Bowl. And in a year where we thought Tuberville was going to get fired, they still went out and got the win. Saved his job, and it eventually led to what 2004 was. Auburn is due, man. These fans deserve this. They have showed up. Another thing that came out of the interview was the coaches, Cohen said, were telling him, the potential candidates, you sold out every game. He lost at home. Look at how many sellouts you guys have had since he's been the coach. Of course you want to come coach here, man. Where else are you going to get that? Ike sent us like a pregame video from Arkansas when he went to go cover the game there. 20 minutes before the game, man. It looked like an 8-day game. Insanely empty. So the support is not promised, especially when you're losing. And SEC Mike said this. He was like, what an amazing fan base that just shows up to watch these horrible offense every week and paying all in this economy. Come on, man. Come on, dude. Auburn just has to find the right guy, man. And it doesn't have to take a lot. I think the finances are there, and I think they've got the right guy at the helm in John Cohen that understands the financial aspect of this, because whether you like it or not, it's a part of it. It's a part of the conversation, and it's not going away.
Yeah, that's where I want to wrap this up, Mike. Auburn sitting here, another coaching search. I know that it looks wild because the last 2 guys combined, they get 5 years. Harsin gets 5 in his second year. Hugh doesn't quite make it through his 3rd year. The narrative that I have continued to push back on the show, and an episode on it last week, is just this idea of crazy Auburn that the national media pushes, that you come to Auburn and you don't get a fair shake. When you actually look at the numbers from the time that Pat Dye took over, and then also there's, on top of that narrative, they also usually throw crap in there like, and they got Alabama in their state and Georgia's their other rival. It's just such a tough job. And I'm not saying Auburn's an easy job. The fact that Georgia and Alabama are on top of the game and they are your biggest rivals, that does like make it a little bit more difficult. I'm not denying that. But this idea that Auburn is just so hard, it's so hard to win at Auburn. Look, Pat Dye came to Auburn. They asked him, how long is it going to take to beat Alabama? He said 60 minutes. And that's kind of that edge mindset that Cohen talks about. And you saw it very quickly. And in Pat Dye's time, I mean, the school claims 1983 national championship, and I tend to agree. You look into how that went down. Auburn was national champs that year. They deserve the right to at least claim part of it. Dye competes, wins the national championship, multiple SEC titles. Terry Bowden comes in. Yes, there are sanctions, but that team under Terry Bowden, SEC championship caliber, national championship caliber team. Tommy Tuberville has 04. Gene Chizik wins a national title. Gus, SEC championships, competes for a national title. Like, it was up until Harsin and Hugh Freeze to where it didn't happen. So they miss me with this, it's hard to win at Auburn, when all we've seen going back to Pat Dye up until these last 2 guys is people winning and winning big at Auburn. But I think the main thing that when I watched that Cohen interview that you did, and just knowing some things about how things have gone at Auburn, the resources that Hugh Freeze got over these past 3 years. No one can say Hugh Freeze was not given every opportunity to win at Auburn, right? And I don't think Hugh Freeze is ever going to say that. He was given every opportunity. He was given every resource possible. Mike, I firmly believe that if Auburn gets this hire right, I'm not saying playoffs next year, but in this current era of college football, you're going to miss me with the whole rebuild thing. Auburn can win games quickly. And if Auburn hires the right guy, then Auburn will win games quickly, and Auburn will be a relevant program on the national stage the way it has been for the first 120 years or whatever it was of its history up until 2020, man. Like I'm not buying this narrative. And when you talk about you have the guy on from that SEC podcast, he talked about Auburn being the better job than LSU right now, being the better job than Florida right now. I'm not just saying that because I'm an Auburn fan. Look at the mess that's going on in Baton Rouge. They don't have all their ducks in a row in Gainesville. Is Scott Strickland that AD? Is he even going to be the one making the hire? It definitely feels like it's Lane Kiffin or bust over there. Auburn's in a great position, and I know this word is thrown around so much. It's like a buzzword, and people probably roll their eyes when they hear it. But from what I can see, dude, the alignment at Auburn is real. Like you mentioned, the fan base is loyal and real. The resources and everything at Auburn is real. If they get this thing right, Auburn is a sleeping giant that can take off quickly. And it sounds like John Cohen pretty much confirmed that to you. He feels the same way.
Yeah, he did. And man, such a great interview. John Cohen is a good guy, and I'm happy that he's Auburn's AD. I really am. I know there's a lot of people who don't like him, but I feel like he has embraced the culture and the community, and he understands the business side, and he's got to wear a lot of different hats, but he's got to get this right. And the function of the athletic director at Auburn is to hire and fire football coaches, period. No athletic director at Auburn ever got fired because they hired the wrong women's basketball coach or tennis coach or equestrian or whatever. Dude, you have football drives. That's why you saw so much anger about moving that game to Atlanta, because of what those home games mean to the community, Dustin. It means a lot. These businesses thrive on that. And, one of the things that came out of that interview is that Auburn is working on a concert series to bring some massive artists to help fill the home game revenue that's going to be lost by moving the Baylor game. I love that. So they haven't abandoned the community. They're still thinking about how they can help them. There's so much opportunity here for this to be the program that takes the next step. And Auburn is a place where you have done it. So it's not delusional of Auburn fans to think that they can what they can be, because you have been. You have been in a national title game. You have had undefeated seasons. You have produced Heismans. You have sold out crowds. You have a stadium that seats almost 90,000 people. That is a production on game day. Night games at Jordan-Hare are might as well be a concert. Flyovers, fireworks, light shows, smoke, 90,000 people cheering at the top of their lungs. There's nothing like it.
Everything good but the football right now.
That's it, man. All they need to add is dubs to the equation, right? And so to do that, you need to hire the right football coach. And like I said, a lot of names will be thrown in the hat here, but it's really simple. You need it in today's college football. You need a guy who has a system that will develop, and who will also put the work on the recruiting trail and get out there and recruit and do the things that he needs to do. And you'll be fine here if you're Auburn. So I'm looking forward to seeing, what they can do here in terms of hiring. Look, man, I may not agree with the hire. I was not on the Hugh train when he got hired. I'll tell you that. There were a lot of guys who were. Jake Crane was. I think Daryl Dapprich was. I think Zach liked the hire at the time. I know Charlie Five was. And we're all in the same place now, though, where we agree he wasn't the guy. But so as an analyst, I will tell you, I will be vocal about, how I feel about who they do end up hiring. But as a fan, once they hire him, I'm rooting for him. Yeah, I'm rooting for success, because I will never root against these kids and the people who will not be getting massive buyouts if he fails. So this has the potential, I think, for it to be a really, really good stepping stone into Auburn's future. You said something that I really liked about, the people who criticized the Gus firing, acting like Auburn is paying some sort of sin tax for firing Gus.
Yeah.
And I think that firing him, while painful, and while it did spark a drought, unlike anything we've seen in terms of losing seasons, a necessary step in getting to where you want to be. Georgia went through this. The only thing was they got their hire right.
Yeah, they nailed the next guy.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, but moving on from a winning coach like Mark Richt was not a popular thing in Georgia circles, but he got a long time, I think like 13 years or something. Like, he was there for a really, really long time.
And I would argue his level of success was a step above what Gus was doing.
Yeah, like
they were kind of the same guy, but
yeah, like it was actually wild to think about all the success that he had. Mark
really
Richt
consistent.
got to Georgia in 2001, and he left in his last season was 2015. He coached there for 15 years, man.
Yeah.
Right. And listen to this. In year 1, 8 wins. 13-1 in year 2, 11-3, 10-2, 10-3, 9-4, 11-2, 10-3, 8-5, 6-7 in 2010. That was by far their worst year. But 10-4 the very next year, 12-2, 8-5, 10-3, 10-3, 9-3. Dustin, in 15 years, he won less than 8 games one time.
Yeah, we take that right now for sure.
One time.
Yeah.
But because of the Bama train that was standing in the way, there were only a couple of SEC championships in there, right? Like, and it was tough. It was tough to get over the hump, I think, with the Bamas and the LSUs during that time on the front end.
They were in the division with Urban Meyer's Florida for a while.
Yeah, man. Come on, dude. You had Saban standing in the way until like 2005, right? You had 2004 Auburn to contend with. You had the Florida to deal with from 2006 to 2008 in Tim Tebow, and they had a couple championships in there. I think they went back to back in 06 and 07. You had some formidable teams that he had to deal with. 2010 Auburn, obviously, 2013 Auburn, 2012 Bama was insane. That year, that was one of the best SEC championship games I've ever watched.
Yeah, it was great.
And the winner was going on to beat the shit out of Notre Dame. And yeah, like I remember seeing a graphic of like a beefed up bulldog and like a beefed up elephant, like getting ready to box, and they were looking at this like little like Notre Dame like gnome, and they were like, yeah, one of us will be right with you. And so Alabama went on to destroy Notre Dame in that title. I think it was like 28-0 at half. Georgia would have done the same thing had they made it. And you moved on from a coach that accomplished all that. But you're not sitting on 2 titles in, you know what I mean, in recent memory if you don't make that change. So Auburn had to move on from Gus, but they got the next hire wrong, and then the next hire wrong. And, they got a chance to get this hire right, but the support was, unlike Harsin, the support was there for Hugh. So the program is actually not in a bad place from a talent standpoint. People argued that Harsin took over a roster that was somewhat depleted because of Gus's lazy O-line recruiting, right?
That's true.
That's bled into Hugh's time at Auburn, and I would argue they didn't fix the O-line the whole time he was here.
They recruited it better, Mike. I think the development of that position has been garbage, and that is a direct shot at Jake Thornton, who I'm just going to be honest with you. I called for him to be fired at the end of last year. I said him and Ben, whatever the tight ends coach name, they got to go. And from what I've seen this year, that hasn't changed. But I don't think he'll be here next year.
So you're looking at all that, and you're thinking, all right, well, now the next coach could have an embarrassment of riches and just have to make sure he gets his core QB. And you're right back in the conversation next year. So all I'm saying is this is not like to your point about those people who felt like Auburn is still paying the moral, tax on firing Gus. your program is actually in a really good position in a lot of ways, except for just wins and losses. The next coach potentially is not taking over a disaster. And I can't stress that enough. Like, so this is not the same thing. This is not the same kind of situation. And Cohen said that. Like, he said that we would be shocked at some of the big names that are interested in this job
Right.
because of the roster.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, I want to come coach there. If you're going to give me everything he got and I can keep that roster together, we can win immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. The average fan would be shocked to know who wants to coach these kids. There are some great names that are a part of it.
Yep. That's it. That's it, Dustin. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah.
We're gonna see who they hire. Cohen said ideally within 24 hours of the Iron Bowl ending, they've announced the hire.
That'd be great.
Oh, that would be. I mean, I think after the Iron Bowl, when Hugh got hired, we had to wait a week or two.
Yeah.
It took a little while. It took a little while for them to get a coach.
And when there kind of like some pushback there because when it kind of leaked that he was going to get hired, there was kind of a little.
Yeah. Well, Cohen was just getting here as well too, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because when we fired Harsin, there was no AD. That was the big thing. Okay,
right.
well, we got to get an AD first before we make the hire. So
yeah. So should be fun.
The one thing that I think is encouraging, man, and we'll get out of here, is that whoever the next head coach is, if he can go to whoever the people are that you go to for these things and get the exact same resources that Hugh Freeze got in the last portal cycle, last offseason, if he can coach, you should be good, bud. Because Hugh went in there and said, hey, I need X amount of dollars to get Xavier Chaplin, top tackle in the portal. Now, regardless of how it's worked out, again, I look at Jake Thornton on that one, but that was the top guy. That was like on the market. He was the top guy. Went and got him. Hey, did he miss on the quarterback? Sure, but guess what? The price tag was the price tag. And Hugh Freeze got the money and went and got him. Mason Murphy, same deal. Singleton, same deal. If the next head coach at Auburn has that exact same situation presented to him, hey, I need this. Here you go, coach. If he knows what to do with it, Auburn's great, man. Auburn's great.
I agree.
That's where I'm at with it, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever agreed more on a subject here, Dustin. So, look, good times ahead. A lot of great discussions I know that we'll have here on the Up Tempo and over at the War Report. And you know, I'm ready to support whoever ends up getting the job because I think they're going to do great things here.
Exciting times on the Plains. We're going to have a new coach named pretty soon. Still got some football to play. Basketball season is just getting tipped off. What's going on next week over on the Auburn Express and the War Report, Mike?
You guys know the deal. Every Monday, Caesar joins me. Kyle Rush from the Barn on Tuesdays. Taylor Davis, sideline reporter for ESPN on Wednesdays. Jacob Goins, ESPN 1067, joins us on Thursdays. And adding to the lineup, my guy from That SEC Podcast, Michael Bratton, will join us, SEC Mike on Twitter. He'll be on Fridays now to talk, as well as our power ranking segment. We got a couple more to do with my guy Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. We go live on Sundays and Wednesdays, Dustin, so you don't want to miss those shows. Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are talking to fans. And, of course, the post game, join as a member. We're doing a watch party.
Let's go.
And it is a lot of fun. Now, Auburn doesn't have any away games left, so I will actually be at the game. But, man, we had an epic time with me crashing out on screen during the Vanderbilt game. So fans got a chance to see what it's like for me to watch as a fan. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so everybody go check that out. Like the video, sub. Let us know in the comments. Who do you want? James Franklin, John Sumrall. Should they just go ahead and promote DJ Durkin? Let us know. Share your thoughts. If you're listening over on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your audio, turn on those automatic downloads. Leave a 5-star review over there as well. We will be back later in the week with another episode of the Up Tempo Podcast. Until then, God bless, and it's War Damn Eagle forever, baby.